Ravens flock, it is 12:05 Eastern this afternoon on Tuesday, August 27th. Welcome inside the vault for your Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. We always say it's going to be a jam-packed hour, and we try our best to follow up on that and live up to that. What's more so than jammed? We're going to be rocking today because news is coming in as of just minutes ago related to the Ravens roster cuts as of 4 p.m. Eastern today. That's under 4 hours from right now. All 53-man rosters, Sarah, across the league need to be finalized. So that's what we're going to be diving into. There's already been several roster cuts reportedly announced.
Flying in.
They are flying in. I'm sure that we'll be adding to the content literally on the fly. So be patient with us. Stay with us. We've got a lot to get to, including a surprising injury update about Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. Tyler Linderbaum is back on the practice field, which is a win for the Ravens offensive line. They're literally just a minute ago, Anthony Miller is going to be released, according to Jeff Zrebiec, one of the more active veteran wide receivers. Another domino has fallen in that category. So, yeah. Here we go, partner.
Here we go. I mean, it is. This is partly why I like doing our show midday, because we get to react to the news live, and as it's flooding in. And before the show started, we're trying to add it all in as much as we can. And I mean, it's just one of those days. It's just one of those days where it's nonstop news. So let's get to it. Should we start with really, some positive news on Linderbaum and just insight that I'm glad we finally have with Mark Andrews. So prior to practice yesterday, Bobby, Jeff Zrebiec was asked about Mark Andrews. And we've had the same question. We were just like, everybody was talking about how minor the car accident was, but he hadn't been practicing since then. And so we were asking, like, was there something where, like, a day later you could maybe have whiplash or have something in your neck, your back, or all of that? No, none of that. Here's Jeff Zrebiec. He says, I think it's unrelated to the car accident. When I go back and think about it, he says, the practice or two before the accident, he seemed to be taking fewer reps. So it sounds like we don't know what the injury is, because Ravens don't have to put out an injury report until the season actually begins. So, if it were a Sunday night game, then you get an injury report Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So for a Thursday night game, we'd get it Thursday would be Tuesday, Monday, Sunday. So a week from this Sunday, we'll get our first injury report. And then if he's on it, then we'll know exactly what it is. But I'm happy to know that it was not car accident related, which I guess I was kind of assuming it was, because it seemed like his absences lined up with that. According to Jeff Zrebiec, that's not the case.
Right. So perhaps more to come here, but something that was discussed yesterday obviously will be relevant to the Ravens, given not only is it something setback related to the rehab from last year? Is it something completely separate? What we do know, though, is it sure seems to be unrelated to that car accident that he was lucky to be walking away unscathed just a couple of weeks ago. As you mentioned, in positive news, Tyler Linderbaum did appear at practice on Monday. He was seen, as you can see there in the distance, in a red non-contact jersey. So while he's not back to full speed, Tyler is now ramping up to hopefully be available, as John Harbaugh has hoped and said that he expects him to be for week 1, September 5th against the Chiefs. Nick Samak, who right now, if you look at that depth chart, is your backup center to Tyler Linderbaum, a 7th-round pick out of Michigan State back in April. He was also back, as Brian Wacker noted, from the Baltimore Sun to practice on Monday, and that's relevant because he was carted off, Sarah, as you know, in that preseason finale in Green Bay. Harbs referred to that as an ankle sprain. So
correct.
Good news there for both centers. We'll see if Samak ends up making the 53.
Yeah, so really good news there. I mean, I thought once he was carted off, I was like, geez, is this going to be like a season ender? Is this going to be an IR situation? So to see him back at practice, the very first practice after the game, really good news for him. And then I just want to dig in a little bit more on Linderbaum here. So this is courtesy of Jeff Zrebiec. He got some video of Linderbaum practicing with that red jersey on. He seems to be moving just fine, and does get a little contact with the pad there, seems to be bursting out of his stance pretty well. I'm not seeing anything holding him back there, Bobby. I don't know about you, but he seems to have good speed, moving those legs, popping up there. So very smart to keep him in that red no contact jersey. No reason to rush it. This is your Pro Bowl center. That was a sight for sore eyes for me.
For sure, and it is in line with the messaging that we've heard throughout the last several weeks, throughout the sort of the tail end of training camp when he went down with that neck. So, good news for Linderbaum. We know he's become a mainstay in that offensive line, and while there are many questions up and down, the five and who they're going to trot out there week one, Tyler's not one of those questions for sure, and that's been the case for a couple of years now.
Now, this is really so for those that are like, wait a minute, so Mark Andrews is hurt, right? This is all news to us because he has been out. We didn't know if it was like, oh, that's why we said it's surprising news that there was apparently an injury even before the car accident. But how serious is it? Now, I know that Ravens flock only wants to take John Harbaugh at his word so much. Understandably, he lets you know. He's told us, I'm not giving you guys information because I give it to you. I give it to the chief. So yesterday, he was being pelted with injury questions. And then he's like, look, let me just address this, kind of an overall summary. He says there's no serious injuries. Now, what that means, when he says no serious, to me, Bobby, all that means is it's not a season ender. That's my John Harbaugh translation. Okay. When he says no serious, it's not a season ender. Okay. So there's no serious injury. None of those guys have anything that's going to keep them out. And then he says, unless something crubs up that I don't know about, but there's nothing that's going to keep anybody out of practice on Friday that you don't know about. Okay. So we didn't know about Mark Andrews. Okay. Kyle Hamilton, he left practice a while back, and then so he wasn't there yesterday. Nelson Aguilar wasn't at practice. He's saying any injuries and so what he says, so the caveat to that, he's like, Rasheen Ali, he's up in the air, and he's like, I can tell you that he may not be there Friday. And the reason why he was willing to reveal that is because you have to announce to the NFL when somebody's in concussion protocol. So the Chiefs already know that. So he felt fine saying, okay, if my opponent already knows it, I'll go ahead and tell you too. But if they don't know it, I'm not going to tell you. So, but what he did tell us is there's nothing that should keep anybody out from practice on Friday. And Friday is like the week for them, right? Because they play the Chiefs on a Thursday. So to them, Friday's the beginning of the week.
Yes.
And so that's the week leading into that game, that week one leading into the game. He's saying so he's like, don't hold that. He's like, if something crops up, don't get angry at me. But at this point in time, so that's good news for Kyle Hamilton, Nelson Aguilar, Mark Andrews, Tyler Linderbaum. All of them should be there Friday, according to John Harbaugh.
And Luke Jones from Ravens Twitter, Ravens beat reporter, who we've had on the show in recent weeks, just tallied up the Ravens that didn't practice, some of whom you've already mentioned, and some of whom we've mentioned, some of whom have already been cut. And while we're keeping on this topic of keeping things fresh for you guys, Kadir Ismail, according to Jeff, becomes the latest cut ahead of the 53-man roster, completions later on today, which is the 4 p.m. Eastern deadline. Kadir converted into tight end earlier on in the summer. Mm-hmm. He was an undrafted player that the Ravens signed, son of our friend and former Super Bowl winning Raven, Kadri Ismail. And Kadir put on a heck of a summer, Sarah. Let's see if he clears waivers. And if he does, you would think that the Ravens want to keep him in the building. We know how deep they are at tight end. We knew it was an uphill battle, given Andrews, Likely, and Kohler and what they've done and what they've established themselves as. But, man, you get Kadir in the building, and based on how quickly and almost seamlessly he transitioned to tight end, you'd have to think that he's got a bright future ahead of him if he keeps this up.
Yeah, I think that's, as long, like you said, the key word is as long as he clears waivers, that's about as a lock as you can get for the practice squad.
Right.
Yep.
So that's that. Now, anything else within this list right here? Clearly, it's a big list. We won't go through every single one of them. We will individually get to some of these guys, including Russell Gage and Anthony Miller in just a bit. That's going to start our wide receiver conversation.
Right.
But this actually begins the wide receiver conversation because Jordan Schultz reported within the last 24 hours that multiple teams, according to his sources, have reached out to the Houston Texans to see if wide receiver John Metchie III would be available in trade due to the plethora of receivers on their roster. As Jordan writes, it's unclear if Houston would move him, but several teams are keeping a close eye. He's a former second-round pick out of Bama, and he had 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown in the preseason. You saw some buzz on this within the flock?
Yeah. So, yeah, I saw a lot of people on Ravens Twitter being like, okay, this is the move. This is the move. So, for those that don't know Metchie's kind of background, I want to get into that a little bit. Ebony Bird, it's a Ravens, blog, wrote an article about how they feel like the Ravens should target him. But I want to read his background to those that don't know it. So, John Metchie, really interesting and underwhelming start to his young career, according to Ebony. It says the former 2022 second-round pick out of Alabama missed the entirety of his first NFL season due to a leukemia diagnosis found during rookie camp. Could you imagine, Bobby? Like, you went to Alabama, you get drafted in the NFL, you're a second-round pick, you feel like your life is getting paid, your whole life you've been dreaming, you make it, and then during rookie camp, they find that he has leukemia. It goes on to say, although he was unsure if he'd ever take the field again, the former Alabama standout came back last season and appeared in 16 games. Suffice it to say, Metchie had an underwhelming welcome back season. He recorded 16 receptions for 158 yards, and then this preseason, dude went off. Okay. He looked like his former self. He posted 10 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. Even with the progress and potential, Metchie could find himself on the way out. The Texans, they are loaded over there in Houston. Okay. They got wide receivers galore. Okay. So the Texans could struggle to find opportunities for their young stud receiver. Their wide receiver room is crowded with Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell occupying the top 3 spots in the depth chart. Metchie is sure to garner trade interest after a strong preseason. The Texans might play the accumulate assets card while Metchie gets a better opportunity elsewhere. If the Ravens are picking up, Ebony Bird says the Ravens should call. Your thoughts?
Well, you're not kidding about their wide receiver room. It is jammed, which is probably why they just released within the last 40 minutes Noah Brown. Had 567 receiving yards last season. Could be looked at as a quality sort of like 3-4 type guy, right? Wide receiver 3 or 4, depending on what team he potentially ends up with. But my thought is that this ain't happening.
Yeah.
That's my thought. I don't think it will happen. I don't think it should happen. I think that they can, first of all, I don't even see them viewing the wide receiver room as a priority as of right now in terms of a potential trade. We spent yesterday's conversation at noon talking about the offensive line side of things. And if there's one area that needs bolstering, it would be that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This year is not like last year at outside linebacker. I know some of you were probably like, well, Bobby, wait a second. Jadavian and Kyle were last minute adds last year. Yeah, that's true. But the market is completely different this year. Aside from Yannick Ngakoue, who didn't have just wasn't a good stint in Baltimore first time around, it's slim pickings. And so while those two take precedent, I don't even see wide receiver being in their plans right now in terms of there's going to be a lot that become available over the next couple hours and some that are already right now. And I know we're talking about a trade scenario here with Metchie, but I just see them looking elsewhere. How about you?
Well, I always like to divide this into, do I think the Ravens should, do something versus do I think they will do something? So let me answer the latter first. Will the Ravens do this? No, I do not think so. As you mentioned, the obvious priority right now is the offensive line. We just don't, we've been talking about it nonstop during the preseason, nonstop. Whereas when it comes to weapons, while I don't think the depth at wide receiver, I don't think is great. And I don't think I think I'm being generous with that, right? Like if Zay were to go down, holy crap, although that's true for a lot of people, if their wide receiver 1 went down, we don't know if Rashad Bateman's going to become who we hope he can become as a first rounder. Then you've got Nelson Aguilar, Tylan Wallace, and then those are the only ones that were really locks. We'll see who else makes the roster. So Could the Ravens absolutely use Metchie as depth? For sure. They just don't have much depth. That said, we don't know what he's going to be either, So maybe it was obviously the first year leukemia, maybe the second year was just opportunity. We don't know. And so, it also depends on how much you would cost. Like I wouldn't give up more than, I think the highest I would go is a 5th rounder. That's the highest. I'd feel better with less, right? So, listen, if you have finite draft picks on what you want to use, I'd prefer that those. So that was, will they? No, they will not. Should they? For the why, if it was in a vacuum, yes, they should. But since we're not in a vacuum and we have to consider the offensive line, I prefer the trade assets to go and bolster the offensive line.
Agreed. We are in agreement there. That's the Metchie conversation. Sticking with wide receiver, though, just because there's been buzz in the past and some reports in the past that the Ravens were in on this wide receiver, we wanted to bring it up. Mike Kliss out in Denver says that with significant depth and talent at wide receiver, the Broncos are moving on from the popular veteran in Tim Patrick. They're currently exploring trade possibilities for him. He's generating strong interest on the market in advance of course, today, which is the roster cut down deadline, which is coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then you have here it was a few years. Wow. It's already been that many years. Wow.
Minute.
So almost around just over 3 years ago, the Ravens were in on Patrick, according to Sports Illustrated, August 14th of 2021. The Broncos would recoup at the time the over $3.3 million and take on no dead money if Patrick were dealt. Didn't end up coming to be. But 3 years later, could there still be interest?
Well, he's 30 now, so that seems like a Ravens-like move.
Right?
Getting that 30.
Their track record says they will certainly be interested.
Yeah, let's see here. Let me look at his stats real quick. I think we were so much news coming into this. I didn't get a chance to look at his most recent stats. Wait, why do I only see? Yeah, he doesn't have stats for. Did you read? What has he been doing the last 2 years?
I have not looked into Tim Patrick. No, I have not been up to what does anybody know what he's been up to in recent years in Denver? But
there's stats up to 2021.
Wow. Yeah, on PFF?
On PFR, yeah, Pro Football Reference. So he was hurt the last 2 years? He's been on IR? Nah, I'm good. A guy that's been on IR for 2 years at 30, sheesh. I'm good. Is that an upgrade for over anybody on the roster?
I know that's a tough question to answer. If you guys been out of the league for 2 years, you might take somebody like Nelson Aguilar, who might only give you 300 or 400 receiving yards this upcoming season.
I'm taking a healthy Nelson. I'm taking a healthy Nelson that has chemistry. We know he has pretty good chemistry with Lamar.
Yeah. Right. It's the type of thing where, like, was Tim's career trajectory higher than Nelly's, at one point a few years ago? Yes. Has Nelly been in the league the last couple of years? Yes.
Yeah.
Tim's been in the league, but unavailable. So.
And he was last year, by the way. Like Nelly was one of those underrated moves. I mean, he did come up in important situations. And remember, like he being that South Florida connection. I mean, he connected with Lamar quickly. And what game was it where he said, "Hey, Lamar, I'm going to take the safety over here, and you're going to have Zay wide open." Like stuff like that. That's not as measurable by stats or whatnot. So.
D Banks. Look at D Banks. Cheap, check mark. 30-plus-year-old receiver, check.
Injury prone.
Sounds like a Ravens move.
At least at wide receiver.
Scarred. Yeah. D Banks is scarred. Well, so sticking with the veteran wide receivers, we know the Ravens brought in 3 this offseason, and some of them came in late this summer. Anthony Miller being one, Russell Gage being another, and then of course Keith Kirkwood was prior to training camp. So 2 of those 3 players, and we're expecting all 3, I think, to be cut, but 2 of those 3 have been cut. Russell Gage, we found out yesterday.
Yep.
Anthony Miller came in just minutes prior to going live.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also compiled some others from yesterday.
These were the ones that were officially announced by the Ravens at the end of yesterday. Yeah, it was Russell Gage, Sean Ryan. Some of these names I don't even know. A lot of them are undrafted rookies. So tight end Mike Rigurma, tight end Riley Sharp, offensive tackle Daryl Simpson, defensive end Tramel Walthor, and punter Jack Browning.
Right. A lot of these were just training camp bodies. Anthony Miller had himself a brief training camp stint in Baltimore, but it was a successful one.
Mm-hmm.
And as Jeff notes, they are planning to release him. He didn't sign with the Ravens until about halfway through camp, as I just alluded to, but he did play well. Jeff notes that he's a vested vet, so he's not subject to waivers. And it wouldn't surprise him to see if the Ravens try to re-sign him to the practice squad. He did have an instant connection with Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a proven track record as being a role player. And perhaps if they have issues in the wide receiver department this year and they stash him on the practice squad, that we could see him up on the 53 at some point.
So 2 things. In our roster prediction show, when I picked my 6 receivers, I left Anthony Miller off for exactly what Jeff Zrebeck just said.
Yeah.
That he's a vested vet, just like Daryl Worley. Like Daryl Worley is like, yeah, they're going to cut him. He's going to put on the practice squad, and then when inevitably there's injuries in the defensive backs room, Daryl Worley's going to get him. We've seen that the last year, maybe more than a year. Anthony Miller, he comes in here. He realizes he's got a good connection. Where's a better place for him to go? And if there is better, then he's on the practice squad. He could always, if he gets signed to an active roster, if another team stuff goes down. But I would, I mean, it's up to him. I mean, if somebody else offers him a 53-man roster spot, then if I'm him, I'm taking it. But who's going to do that when he got signed to the Ravens training camp, like midway through training camp? He wasn't getting any other suitors. Right. So if I'm him, yeah, I'm signing to the practice squad, just like many veterans have done. Dalvin Cook did it last year. Des Bryant did it for a minute, right? That's happened a few times. Sign to the practice squad, and, things could turn your way quick. And then you can continue to work on, learning the playbook, learning the system, maybe connecting with Lamar. I mean, I'm sure in practices, Lamar is going to be more with the starters or whatnot, but this is exactly what I thought could happen. Now, I've seen on Twitter people celebrating because they thought, well, if Anthony Miller's cut, then that means Wade is going to make it. And I wouldn't go that far yet. It would surprise me still if Wade made it. My predictions were Zay, obviously Rashad Nelson, and then Deontay Hardy. And I know he hasn't done much. Wade outplayed him for sure, and it's because of the guaranteed money they gave him. Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker, because I just don't think that they can get rid of a 4th-round draft pick. So I wouldn't celebrate Wade just yet.
I would agree. Other notes, just in terms of the roster cut down, Tayshawn Manning, who's a guard, was waived according to Jeff Zrebeck. So one less offensive lineman in the mix. QB Emory Jones, undrafted rookie, has been waived.
Wouldn't shock me if he were on the practice squad.
Definitely. This one set Twitter ablaze because I think some, to summarize what I saw, maybe you saw some of this dialogue too, some within the fan base didn't feel like he got enough of a fair shot when compared to Devin Leary, just in terms of overall sample size. Devin had a rough preseason for sure. And we'll see if Emory ends up becoming a developmental prospect for the Ravens at the quarterback position. We did just get a super chat donation here from Stevens Dempsey. What's up, Stevens?
Thank you.
And they wrote, could Malik or Kadir be held on to be the emergency quarterback? Not sure that they would have somebody dedicated to the 53-man roster for that. It would just be somebody that's a lock that has that in their bag of tools.
We already know that Kadir has been cut.
You're right.
Right?
So Kadir has been cut.
Or at least reportedly announced.
Yeah.
So he's been cut.
And Malik is not expected to make this team.
I could see him also on the practice squad, but I could see that with Malik. Not on the roster.
Yes.
But on the practice squad, things get thin.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think
like on the 53, no.
The way that no, definitely not. But the way I guess I first read this question, the first thing that popped up in my mind was when San Francisco was dealing with their issues a couple seasons ago in that game, and they had like 3 or 4 quarterbacks injured, and they went and got like I don't even know who was warming up at the time. Was it George Kittle? I don't know. But whoever that ends up being in that really unlikely situation is somebody that has the ability to at least throw a football and that's a part of your 53-man roster. I don't know who that would be in Baltimore. Who was it several years ago that was like they talked about that this would be the guy? It was during the COVID
No,
era.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I
Not
can't
Cook,
remember.
was it? Sam Cook?
Was it Sam?
Yeah, because remember Sam threw the ball on a fake punt on 4th down.
And for a while, he was the most accurate passer in the history of the league.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember who that was? Willie Snead, someone says.
Willie Snead.
Others say Sam Cook. Huh. And then Emery reminding all of us with a super chat donation. Thank you, Emery. Appreciate you guys. Very active today. Almost 3,000 of you concurrently watching today's live stream.
Keep
Across
coming. Hit
all
that like
platforms.
button. Keep coming.
That's always a good reminder. Please hit the like button so that other folks can discover us. Subscribe to the channel for daily Ravens content. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already. And Emery writes via the $4.99 super chat donation. Heads up, according to Tom Pelissero yesterday, the Players Association vetoed the game day emergency QB call-up. The Ravens will now need to keep 3 quarterbacks. I don't think they're gonna.
No, I don't think they have anybody that's worthy for the 3rd spot.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna.
But to Steven's point, there's got to be somebody that's an emergency.
Yeah. Yes. So remember, if you weren't watching yesterday, this rule, being that it's been vetoed, is now reverting back to the 2023 version of it, which means you don't have the 3rd quarterback can't be kept on. Or what is it now?
No,
Now
so
I'm
last
forgetting
year,
it.
what last year the rule was is the 3rd quarterback had to be on the 53, but on game days you can only dress 46.
Yes.
You could dress a 47th as your emergency quarterback that wouldn't count against the 46. So they were trying to extend that, and instead of taking up a 53rd roster spot, they wanted to make it onto the practice squad. And so we're going to go back to last year where you can bring up an emergency quarterback as the 47th dressed, but they have to be on the 53-man roster.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lots of back and forth, lots of last-minute changes and alterations. So that's where we're at there. Elsewhere, Mary Kay Cabot. We've had her on the show before, and she noted that the Browns are keeping Dorian Thompson-Robinson on the 53. Remember DTR, guys? I think we all do. The first time they played last year, the first of 2 against Cleveland, DTR probably still having nightmares from what the Ravens defense did to him. My Lord, that was an unbelievable, dominant performance. And I think it was, to be fair, I think it was his first career start as well, if memory serves. But anyway, Mary Kay is saying that the Browns are going to field calls for Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley and could trade one of them. They've got 3 quarterbacks in that room right now. Deshaun's, of course, going to be your starter. And then it's just a matter of, well, do we need all 3 of them? And what can we get for Huntley and or Winston?
So they're saying DTR is better than both well, I don't know if they're saying DTR is better than Jameis. Am I saying his name right?
Jameis.
It's all about where to accent the syllables. I'm sorry. I love Tyler, but who's trading for Tyler?
Well, I know some within the Ravens flock fan base want him back instead
Well,
of
they
Josh
want him
Johnson.
back, but what GM is trading for Tyler Huntley? They're just trying to get something out of him, but they're going to have to cut him.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, I call your bluff.
Yeah, I don't know if any. I'm sorry, the live chat's cracking me up right now.
What are they saying? Oh, because I said his name wrong.
Sometimes I can't look at it. I just can't look at it.
They said who? TF is Jameis.
Oh man, that's good. That's good.
They are pointing out Tyler Huntley is a Pro Bowler. Let's not forget that.
Oh, this is good. So Sarah's question is, who TF is trading for Tyler Huntley? And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's desperate enough in terms of, all due respect to Snoop, is anybody desperate enough to upgrade their backup quarterback position to bring him in? the more experienced, especially as a starter, is Jameis by far. So you would think he'd
Yeah.
be the more he'd be the more attractive candidate.
Yeah.
But are
Oh,
they
for sure.
actually willing to give him up because he's probably one of the best backups in the league?
I'd take him.
In a heartbeat.
Although I don't know that would I trade for him?
Who are some of the
No.
best backups in the league right now, right? Like Carson Wentz comes to mind. He's in Kansas City. Jameis
I
definitely at the top of the list.
I would like Jameis just for like the pressers.
Oh, he's hysterical. He really is hysterical.
Like, I think he'd be fun to have in Baltimore. Could you
Flacco's in
imagine him
Indianapolis.
and Lamar? I would just love that.
Oh, yeah. And Jameis has honestly played that role really well, like transitioned to that role really well and kind of like probably eaten his humble pie in recent years. But Joe Flacco, of course, thank you, Evan, comes to mind in Indianapolis. After what he did last year, he's got to be looked at one of the more, compelling backups out there. So, yeah, they might just be trying to stir up some interest here to you, if that's
They're
what you're getting
trying.
at,
I don't
Sarah.
blame them for trying, but
Yeah,
nobody's gonna trade for. Listen, I'd be shocked if somebody traded for Tyler Huntley. But that does bring up an interesting question. When they, in my prediction, cut Tyler Huntley, do you bring him back? I
the
would.
Ravens.
Over Leary?
Oh, over Leary 1,000%. Yeah, bring him back. But that's the thing. Yeah, if it's not a trade, I'm sure there'll be a mad dash to at least get the guy on his practice on your practice squad.
But I'll say this, even though it's over Leary, like, and you have heard me, I'm not super happy with Josh Johnson either. I mean, I've said that a time or two. But I don't know that I would put him above Josh Johnson just because I feel like we've seen what Tyler Huntley can do with this offense, and it's just not enough for me.
We have seen it.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in a hefty sample size.
Yeah.
Sticking with quarterbacks, Bailey Zappi, who's definitely became like a fan favorite during the Mac Jones era, I would say, because there were so many different quarterbacks used in New England. He's going to be waived. He is going to be waived, according to Tom Pelissero, by the New England Patriots. This is another player, Sarah, that would be an immediate upgrade to what you have in the building. Different play style, so you'd be back to sort of that whole Ryan Tannehill thought. It's not this. It's not, you're not running the same scheme offensively with Bailey as you are with Lamar. And I guess that's one of the things that's attractive about Snoop, maybe to some, right? They've got some similarities. I'm wondering if that was probably one of the biggest reasons why they were willing to bring him in as an undrafted guy out of Utah several years ago. But anyway, this was
I don't
one of
know
the.
enough about Zappy to. It sounds like you know more than me.
Well, I just know that he's a serviceable player who probably never got. It's a small sample size of what he was working with in New England, and I think the Mac Jones era, from what I watched, was just a complicated one because you felt like part of the organization was in on him, part wasn't. Bailey gets his shot, but Mac's still there. I mean, there was injuries. There's just all kinds of different. So meaning, I felt like Bailey showed that he's a capable quarterback, but hasn't been able to reach his ceiling yet in the league because of the situation, more so than anything else.
Okay, Omega's speaking my mind. Snoop is similar to Lamar, except he can't do anything the things that Lamar can do. Almost nobody can. Yeah, nobody can.
Yeah. And you guys know what I mean, Omega. It's similar play style, not ability.
Is it?
Just from a mobility standpoint.
He's not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he can. I guess he can run.
I just don't view.
There's not like it's like. I don't know. There was nothing he did rushing wise that I was like, oh, that's yeah.
I just thought escapability from the pocket reminded me a little bit of Lamar.
Yeah, I don't agree.
It's style standpoint, not like plays that you can match up and put together on a collage and be like, oh, look at these guys. They're super similar. No, not at all. But I'd say style wise, not far off. Look at you.
We're gonna move on because we're gonna agree to disagree.
Let's go back to some slides here. Let's see.
Get back to the slides.
So much to discuss. Pepe Williams, one of the first guests
Yeah.
that we ever had on this
I
show.
think he was the first, wasn't he? Like
Summer
the first?
2022. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was right around it. So
Yeah.
Pepe Williams, former 2022 fourth round pick at corner. He has been waived according to Jeff's source. Jeff then noted on Twitter, going back and forth with folks, that he struggled in the last game of the preseason, has never really found a spot on special teams, and we know what they have at corner.
Mhm.
Marlon, Stevens, Ardarius, Armour Davis, and it looks like they're going with JAD over Pepe, and who've always been connected at the hip, right, from a fan base standpoint, since they're both fourth-round picks and they're both
Right.
2022 guys, and
And
they
they're
both
both
play
injured for
corner.
a minute. Yeah.
Yes. And then
But
Tampa to add on to the end of that list,
Mhm.
TJ Tampa. So Jeff also notes that Williams is more of a nickel, and they'll use Hamilton in that role at times, as we all know. So is it a surprise? No. Is it jarring? Maybe just because folks wanted him to succeed and he's been in the building for a little while. Yes. But I wouldn't call it a surprise, would you?
I wouldn't call it a surprise. I went back and forth on whether I should cut him, and I should have known better. Like, once I saw him playing deep into the third preseason game, that should tell you everything. Um, it, as Jeff pointed out, there were other people that could have been out there instead of him. So, but it's really tough. I mean, Jalen Armour Davis was able to like resurrect himself once he got over his injuries, and Pepe just couldn't quite get there. I feel like Tampa kind of took his spot, right, as like this young guy with potential. Pepe's a guy that you just can't help but love. So I really hope that he's able to catch on somewhere. I mean, he could sign to our practice squad here, but if I were him, knowing the depth that's here, it might be better to get a fresh start and try somewhere else. I would love him to be on the practice squad. He's just such a lovable, likable guy, and I feel bad for him. I feel bad that like he really didn't get the time that he needed to develop. And then you're injured for a couple years, you blink, and the Ravens draft 2 new cornerbacks, and suddenly you're not the young guy that gets the benefit of the doubt as a draft pick. Like you've had your couple of years and time ran out. So, but wish him the best and hope he lands on his feet.
Well, I saw some live chatter about another wide receiver that looks to be available. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN says that the Panthers are releasing Terrace Marshall. He's a former second-round pick, had a strong training camp, should be a good waiver option. I believe he was a former LSU standout, if I'm not mistaken. So there's going to be plenty of those wide receivers that are out there. It looks like Terrace Marshall becomes the latest, and so we'll just keep you updated along those lines at that position. Chris Collier, he's been waived, according to Brian Wacker of The Sun. Could be a practice squad candidate. We know that Chris was he was one of those guys that you saw a lot of this preseason, and I would have taken Owen Wright. I think we all, having listened to you and Jason on your sort of your prediction show, had Owen not broken his foot in the preseason finale, he looked to be the favorite, perhaps even over Rasheen Ali. But Chris showed a little bit. We'll see if he gets in the building and they end up developing him at back.
Yeah. Wouldn't hate that at on the practice squad for sure.
And this was just some practice notes from
already
yesterday,
hit
but we've already gotten into that. Super chats donations are flying in right now, so
we're gonna get to those.
We can roll over to that in just a bit. But then this was also some notes from yesterday, some of which we've already covered. But the Rasheen Ali thing, which is sort of what you mentioned in one of our early slides, he's dealing with concussion protocol. So do you view him as, is he looked at as an IR candidate right now, you thinking?
Rasheen Ali?
Yeah.
It depends. Yes, but whether he makes the initial 53 might be different. I'm kind of leaning towards the idea we discussed yesterday, which is that for now, you really only need 2 running backs on the 53-man roster.
Yeah.
The third one would be used in a special teams capacity, but you can get that special teams from somebody else at a different position. We talked about, loading up at safety with both Bo Braid and Sanusi, Kane Sanusi. So, or John Ross, if he's healthy. I think he mispracticed again. So I don't know, Bobby. It's hard to know. So Harbaugh said he's still in concussion protocol with that kind of stuff. You know, it's not going to be a month, but you also don't know how quickly he's going to get taken off. And then even on top of it, even if he did clear, like, have you really learned enough from him about him to be like, okay, yeah, um, he's definitely, worthy of 53. I don't think he's done anything this preseason to say he's worthy of a coveted 53-man roster spot. So they if they feel like they want him later on, then he's going to have to get on that 53-man roster, and then they can put him on IR later. Or they can risk putting him. What round was he drafted in?
Rasheen was the 5th.
Ugh,
I know.
that's
That's an early
risky.
day 3, boy.
Yeah, that's risky to try to cut him. Like I stick with my prediction. I think he makes the initial 53, but then you could play with the IR after that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just so everybody's clear too, in case you hopped on late here on the live stream. These veteran absences that Kyle notes on social, nothing to be worried about. I mean, we mentioned Nelly, Mark, and Kyle. Everything seems to be all right. It's just that the Mark thing is unrelated,
To the
according
car
to
accident.
unrelated to the car accident. Thinks Jeff Zarevek. So nothing to really be concerned here on the screen. We'll just kind of see how things shake out roster wise with Rasheen. And if it weren't for Owen going down, this picture might look a little bit different ahead of today's deadline, which again is 4 p.m. Eastern. What you got on Voorhees?
By the way, Owen's really the one. Now that I think about it, if Owen is not a season ender and it is a hairline fracture, maybe he makes the initial 53 and then you put him on IR. They have some decisions to make. That's one position I'm very interested, just because
Yeah,
injuries have made it very murky. Like, I'm very interested to see how they handle that.
definitely.
Yeah. So John Harbaugh was asked yesterday if he has made a decision on the starting offensive lineman. Harbaugh says, we have. Yes, I'm not going to make any announcements on any starting positions going to the Chiefs game. What would be the point? We'll just go play the game. That's another thing that he wants to catch them a little bit off guard by not giving that information. And I thought I saw a question about the offensive line. Here we go. Let's pull this one up from the super chat. Thank you. Reveal C. Let me blow this up so I can see it better. Gilmer, by the way, Bobby, sorry, side note. I know we're in a rush because we have so much news. I've hit that age. I used to make fun of people who couldn't see close up and needed to put on reading glasses.
Are you
I
there?
I borrowed my husband's glasses last night. I could not see my phone. I'm like, I can't see. And I put on these big oversized men's glasses. So anyway, that's why it's like huge now on my screen.
Well, at least you look young. How about that?
Appreciate that.
Gotcha.
Appreciate that. All right. Reveal C. Gilmer says offensive line is the top priority. Lamar nor Henry can be successful up with low run blocking. This is the AFC North. That I completely agree with Reveal, which is why I said trade assets should not go to a wide receiver right now, as much as they could build depth there. I think the bigger priority is offensive line, because to his point, your big free agent signing was Derrick Henry. You do not let that go to waste.
Yeah.
Whereas like a wide receiver, which is a dependent position, which might be like Metchie would be like wide receiver 4 at best, right? Maybe 3. Like, is he really taking Nelson Aguilar? Maybe. But anyway, let's say, okay, at best,
Yeah.
wide receiver 3 at best. But at the same time, that he's rarely going to see the ball because of Mark Andrews, because of Isaiah Likely, because of Derrick Henry, because of Zay Flowers, and even Rashad Bateman. Like, those are all priorities over him. And so protecting Lamar and opening holes for King Henry is top priority. And offensive line affects every single play. Wide receiver 3 does not. Okay. And like I said, that's at best. So here's my question. So the way John Harbaugh said that, if we were predicting the offensive line based off of what he's done all preseason, we would know, starting from left to right, it would be Ronnie Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, and rotating Roger Rosengarten and McCary. If we just went totally based on what he's shown us literally all preseason. The fact that he doesn't want to just say, yeah, you've seen it, makes me wonder, and maybe I'm wondering it because I'm hoping it's going to happen, that maybe he'll go ahead and put Cleveland in. And maybe I'm reading into it because that's what I want to happen. This is a biased, obviously that's what I want to see happen.
Yeah.
So we'll
Makes
see.
two of us.
Because everything, if he does exactly what's on tape, then he wouldn't be giving a heads up on anything.
Right. I'd rather go the safe bet too. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Throw Ben in there. You know what he is. Give Daniel the time if you want to continue that experiment. But there's no time for experimenting once September 5th comes
Not when
around.
Chris Jones is over there.
Yeah. And Papa Smurf, right along those lines, perfect segue with another super chat donation. They're flying in today. We're coming up on 3,500 concurrents right now across all platforms. Thank you all for being here on roster cutdown day. Papa Smurf, how safe do you think Lamar and Henry will be this season given the O-line status? Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, right? This is why we're spending so much time talking about how this is the position of choice. This is what should be premium needs to be placed on upgrading the offensive line over wide receiver. That's why we both are sort of taking this angle. And we can have the conversations about Metchie and the Browns, and meaning Noah Browns of the world, and all these other wide receivers, Terrace Marshall, that are all becoming available. But bottom line is you have the deepest tight end room in the league for a reason, which doesn't magnify your very subpar or perhaps just average wide receiver room that you have right now. And because of that tight end room, I'm not as worried about upgrading wide receiver. I want to make sure that we can protect the bell cow and King Henry, and obviously your two-time MVP. So we're with you, Papa.
Well said.
Papa. Let's see.
What else
Let's see. We've got a lot, including a brief
wait. Eric wants to know. Let's put it out there for everybody. How do I donate? How do they donate?
Yeah, we'll get back to these two legends in just a second.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Eric, there's a bunch of different ways you can donate, which is a great time. How about we do this? Perfect segue. Jaron and Christopher, Jaron Fonville and Christopher Saxey. This is your monthly shout out via Patreon. So Eric, one way to do it is through Patreon, patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. Jaron and Christopher signed up for our monthly shout out tier. $4.99 a month. You get a monthly shout out on the channel. It helps us out on the back end greatly. And then you can do so for as little as $1.99 as well. Or if you're a small business owner, you can go all the way up to $49.99 per month. It really just depends on where you're at, how you want to support. The Vault Patreon community is growing every single day. And honestly, it's a great time to do so, being that football is right around the corner. So all that information can be found in the show notes below. If you want to do it on a one-time basis.
Yeah, I was going to say that's on Patreon. How do you do a super chat?
I'm pretty sure it's a great question. I've never submitted one in my life.
Somebody's saying hit the money sign in the chat. Maybe we just don't see it on our end.
Big Cuz has got us covered.
Thanks, Big Cuz.
So if you want to do it on a monthly basis, Patreon's a great way to do so. You can also do it through the super chat features, which is what Big Cuz is checking on. And
yeah, Tila says there's a $sign next to the comment line.
I used to have our Ravens Vault Venmo thing handy here in our, let's see, where is it? Aha. See, I got everything up here in the arsenal.
Boom.
There's our Venmo tag, Eric, if that's easier for you. There's a bunch of different ways that you can donate to the channel. We appreciate everybody's support. And Eric, thanks for asking. So yesterday, John Harbaugh announced that the Ravens are going to dedicate this upcoming season to not only Jacoby Jones, who passed earlier this summer, but Joe D, Coach Joe D, who unfortunately left us on Sunday morning at 70. Two Ravens legends, two great men. And so not sure how they're going to actually dedicate it in terms of whether or not we'll see something on the jersey. I know a lot of you have been asking about that, whether it's a patch or a number in Jacoby's case. But they are dedicating this upcoming season to both of these guys. And hopefully for their sake, for Coach Joe D and Jacoby, they have a front row seat up top to a show this upcoming season.
I'm sorry. I just saw a chat, which I should not have laughed after that. I 1000% agree with that decision. Love that they're dedicating it to these two legends. They 1000% deserve it. patch, all that kind of stuff. Well done. I hope that they have the tribute videos, like all of it, like blow it out and tribute to them. This is what made me laugh. Daniel said, donate so Sarah can get new glasses. I do need to get into an eye doctor. Okay. So.
Wow, this is a new development for you that I hadn't really heard about in our
New to me
conversations.
too. It's
Yeah.
new to me too.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like it comes out of nowhere.
Goodness.
All right.
Another Raven, another former Raven, I should say, who's garnering some interest. Todd Archer, Cowboys reporter, says that not only is Dalvin Cook in town visiting the Vikings, he's a former Viking, the Cowboys, but Tyus Bowser is also scheduled to meet with Dallas. And then Todd tweeted at the end of it saying that injuries kept him off the field for the most of the last 2 years. Sarah, are we sure? Are we certain that injuries kept him off the field?
I saw you put that on Twitter. I was like, look at Bobby over here. I do think it was injuries.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think there was more to that.
What do you think it was?
I think he was in Harb's doghouse for whatever reason.
You're telling me the guy that they paid a ton of money to, he was eating up tons of money, that they just didn't activate him because he was in a doghouse?
It seems super mysterious. The
No.
whole messaging, the messaging
It was definitely
swirling around
mysterious.
that was just so unusual. How do you go from somebody that was like a borderline Pro Bowler just a few years ago to barely even seeing the guy, and Harb's being asked about him and all the different ups and downs and inconsistent messaging? Just begs the question. I was wondering what the heck happened last year. I don't know if we'll ever know.
Hold on a second here, Bobby. Okay, listen. You're a smart man. Well, let's look at his now they are in a contract dispute for sure, because technically, because he was on the NFI list, he wasn't, all that money wasn't going to be given to him. So they are in it. It's not very well reported, but they definitely, Tyus is trying to get some of his money back.
Yeah.
But last year, his cap hit was $7.5 million. You don't play around with that because somebody's in a doghouse. And by the way, Tyus is such like he's just a nice, good guy. You know what I mean?
Dude.
He's not like an attitude dude. He's not like attitude. Now, was it probably frustrating for John Harbaugh and the Ravens that they couldn't figure out why he wasn't making it back? Yeah. But I'm not going down that conspiracy theory with you at all. I'm far away from that.
We may never know. What about other former Ravens?
What about him? We got the Giants released wide receiver Miles Boykin. Was he on the Giants? The last I remember, he was with the Steelers, right?
He's been all over.
He's been
since
around.
leaving Baltimore. Yeah.
So, but they want to bring him back to the practice squad. So he's got to be a vested vet by now, right? It's been a minute. Feels like it has been.
Boykin was one of the more disappointing.
You know what's so crazy is that year he was. This is why you can never ever get too excited. I've learned this lesson more than once. Well, you can never get too excited about training camp and preseason stars, because he came into the league with Marquise Brown, correct? 2019
year.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
So he came in with and Hollywood was injured. Remember, he was coming off of the screws in his foot.
Liz Frank, yeah.
The Liz Frank. So he wasn't doing much that preseason, but Miles Boykin was going off. Like every other day you were hearing some sort of like news. Yeah. And so I remember we had to do a prediction. We weren't doing our show yet at that time, I don't think. No, we weren't. But I went on somebody else's show and we did like a prediction show, and somebody said, who's going to be rookie of the year? And I said Miles Boykin.
Did you really?
Because he was going off, dude. And then it ended up that Hollywood was, not like the best ever, but was pretty legit. And then he fell off big time.
Yes, he did.
Man, the hopes were so high.
Third round pick, had all the measurables that everybody wanted in Ravens land for your big body wide receiver, and just could not make it happen in the regular season. So since then, he has been around. He's been in Pittsburgh, and he's now been so only 2 stops. I thought there was one or other in there, but
so
it's been Pittsburgh and it's been the New York Giants. So we'll see if he ends up being placed on their Practice squad, indeed. John Berger, thank you for the super chat donation. They are
Hey,
flying in today. We
thank you
appreciate you
guys.
guys for being here.
Thank you, John.
And we're coming up on now we're south, I should say north of 3,500 and concurrently watching today's live stream. Almost at 1,000, creeping in on 1,000 on YouTube. James Prochet, another former Raven. He's going to be released by the Cleveland Browns, according to Jeremy Fowler, but they want to bring him back. He's a viable punt returner, or at least he turned into one in Cleveland. And we'll see if he ends up on their practice squad. Another guy who was just a disappointing, didn't pan out in Baltimore.
He had his moments. Like there's some like Miles Boykin, I felt like just like fell off, but I feel like James Prochet had his moments, and he was a 5th rounder too, right? Or 6th rounder.
Well, so Boykin was 3rd.
Boykin was 3rd, so that was a disappointment. James Prochet, I think, was a 6th rounder.
Let's see where Prochet was.
So to me, Prochet actually played above.
6th rounder out of SMU.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he played decently for that. And he had now the bad thing is it seemed like always in big moments because he just like would like fumble or have some sort of missed, catch, or I feel like on a punt return or something, he bobbled the ball. It just seemed like in big moments he just like crumbled, But Miles Boykin to me was more of a disappointment. He was like, he showed flashes for a 6th rounder, but then never really was able to get over the hump.
I'm with you. Like expectations should be tempered when you're a 6th rounder, but I guess why I said disappointing the first thing that came out of my mouth was disappointing, and the reason why was because he was one of those guys that was hyped up in the summer because he was like first one in, last one out. Everybody always said like Prochet's here, man. This guy is having a great summer. Look at him. He's productive in camp. He's productive in preseason, and then it never ever panned out. And it seemed like that was the case for like consecutive summers. Yeah. So that was the first thing but you're right. I mean, 6th round pick. How many expectations can we have?
Yeah.
So let's see. What else do we have? We have other slides here. There's been a lot. Let's get to CD Lamb because this probably is just worth mentioning, being that it should affect Jamar Chase in Cincinnati.
I love that price tag in Cincy.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah, you're going to be. Yeah, exactly. You're going to be clenching your fists in a good way on that one, or in a devilish way. So CD Lamb, big extension in Dallas. It's a 4-year, $136 million deal. He's going to be the 2nd highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the league. It's a $38 million signing bonus. That's the largest ever given to a wide receiver. And now you'd have to think that Jamar is going to get done before the start of the season.
38 million. He can go get his eyes checked as much as he wants. That kind of guaranteed money. No, that's huge money. Good for him. I don't know what Cincinnati is dragging their feet, what they're taking so long for. I don't know if it's like dotting their I's and crossing their T's, but every moment they wait, the price tag is going to go up because Jamar's going to want to be the highest paid.
Definitely. Just
and he should, based off the fact that the latest always gets paid more. If you're like one of the top 10, or maybe even the top 15, then you become the next highest paid. It's the same thing at the quarterback market.
Yep.
So who else out there needs to get paid? Let's get them all paid.
I bet you hope they give him double in Cincinnati.
Double
what
it.
CD got. Double it.
Because there's nobody in Baltimore. The Ravens are never going to it's not going to hurt Baltimore.
There's no wide receiver going to be clamoring for that money. Sorry, Zay, we love you.
Maybe Zay. We'll see in like 4 more years, right? Or maybe he plays well enough that he demands it after his 3rd year. I don't know, but maybe 4 years down the line, we'll see. But traditionally, the Ravens have never been in this market, so I don't care. Just drive it up for all the AFC North teams.
We love you, Zay. You've been a godsend. Keep moving. Keep developing.
I honestly think, and I didn't bring it in. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow because we had too much news. But L'Jarius Sneed was on the Pivot podcast, and he talked about what he saw from Zay and how he knocked it out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I was like, I hope Zay watched this because Zay could only get better from it. Because I do think he can become elite. I really do. I think he can be an all-around wide receiver one. I do. Yeah.
I'd like to think so as well.
Yeah. Hey, we're on the same page finally today.
Finally?
Yes.
You think so? It's been a full day of disconnect?
Well, I'd say the last 10 minutes or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Aside from the Bowser
and you saying that Tyler Huntley is like, you know. Yeah. Let's not revisit that.
Oh, I want to though. This is so random from yesterday.
This is so random. It threw
The
me
way
off.
Schefter put it, this is so
No,
classic Schefter.
these national guys have done this 2 weeks in a row. Like
Yeah.
last week, it was it Pelissero, where he's like Lamar Jackson has been cut, the
Oh
cornerback
yeah.
from da 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 da. And
Yeah.
it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
this one, the way he writes it, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson is helping bring the Colts back to Baltimore. And it's like, what? We got the Ravens now. Oh, he's talking about something that I personally have never heard of. Jackson is joining the sports ownership ranks as the principal owner of the National Thoroughbred League's newest team, the Maryland Colts. Is this so random or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Lamar, an owner of a like horse racing club. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Schefter goes on to say, and so one of the Ravens leaders is now helping to bring the Colts back to Baltimore. I
think it
need
was
somebody
like
to ask Lamar about this.
the
Like,
Colts
how did he
owner.
get connected to this?
I know. I know.
I mean, I get there. Obviously, you have the Baltimore connection, but beyond that,
The only thing I could think of is that Lamar never misses an opportunity, being that he played his college football in Louisville, to show
yeah,
up to one of the to one of the horse racing events in the
right.
off season.
That
So
is
like,
crazy. He's been to 2 towns where like horse racing is massive.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. He spent, he's either lived in or spent like considerable time in each one of those towns, and so uh, I remember in the past, he's been a fixture at the Derby. He obviously has been to Preakness a couple times. So that's the only thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
We have folks that are trying to get us to 200 likes on this live stream on the YouTube side of things. So thank you,
I love
Jozo,
it. Yes.
for leading the charge there. And it goes without saying, if you guys like the stream, we got a great chance of being discovered by maybe somebody within the football community or within the Ravens community that has been unaware of what we do on a daily basis. So if you can get those likes up, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you can subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already done so, that would be awesome as well. And then also, one other thing that would be really, really helpful is a quick little survey that we have in the bottom of the show notes below, at the top of the show notes below. It's a free survey. Obviously, all surveys are free for the most part. But if you do it and you fill it out, it's like a minute or two. It helps us with our brand sponsors for upcoming football season. And you also will be entered in for a chance to win a couple $500 gift cards. So those right now are available, or that link is included in the show notes below. And then what I'll also do is just quickly drop it in the live chat. Anything else that we need to discuss before we bounce?
Yeah, we did it.
Oh, thank you.
Jazo says we did it. I think they said we're at 2:00. Whoa. Suddenly we're up at 2:30 now. Now I'm seeing 2:37. Thank you, everybody. Chef says we're at 2:43. All right, good. This one will start moving in the algorithm. Appreciate you guys.
Honestly, it is so important. Like, it's just so important for reach and discoverability. So it goes a long way, guys. We appreciate it. And we're now here. Football is almost a week away. So Sarah and I are, I'm just going to drop the survey link in here in the live chat.
Yeah, do that. And we got to all the super chats, right?
We got to all of our.
Oh, bro, I definitely have a copay here. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, copays. Sebastian wants a painting update. Painting update is done.
Oh,
The painting house 8 wood. I'm not going to give my mom's address. We call it by the address.
That's a good call. You are an open guy, but you do have limits. That's nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, the house is done. And so just a few more projects remain before I get back down to Baltimore permanently for the fall. So thanks, Sebastian. It's been a heck of a summer. And thank you, E-Man Watts, for doing the survey. Appreciate that. It's just something that, thank you, Aaron. We appreciate you guys. So just to be clear on the survey thing, we have a distribution partner that we work with on the audio only side of things. It's called Blue Wire, and they just need this survey to be filled out so that they can do their best to figure out your consumption habits as a subscriber or a listener of ours, so that they can then go and tailor what we do basically to the brand partners that they have. Right. So we can get paid for football season, that we can most importantly continue to do this on a full-time basis. So
absolutely. And by the way, I've said this before, but I really do mean it. I really think you're a great son.
Oh,
to your mom. Maybe I should talk to
thank
her
you.
to get her perspective, but, like, that was like a labor of love over the summer. Like, that is blood, sweat, and tears. Maybe not
Oof.
blood, but sweat.
No, there was blood.
Oh, there was blood. Okay,
Yeah,
blood,
there was
sweat.
blood.
Were there tears?
No tears.
No tears. Okay.
I don't
But
think so.
certainly a labor of love, and I love that you're always checking in on your mom, and, yeah, maybe I say that because, like, someday I hope my kids will come and paint my house when I'm older. So,
Well, thanks.
yeah,
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 it was one of those things that just super rewarding. I'm like getting exhausted thinking about it because it was cumbersome. But hey, June 28th, I started the project. I spent a couple weeks in Baltimore for my birthday weekend and then just like in-person things that we needed to do in July. So it wasn't like a full summer in upstate, but for the most part, June 28th, I started the project and then we finished it 2 Sundays ago.
good for
So
you.
it was a lot, but really excited to get back. It goes without saying, really excited to get back down to Baltimore for this fall. I'm going to be doing pregame shows at Be More Around Town outside the M&T Bank Stadium. Sarah and I, of course, will be doing our weekly postgame shows. We've got so much planned for you this upcoming season, and you can just kind of taste it. It's getting here. Uh, we can feel your enthusiasm on the other end of this stream. We really can. The live chat's been buzzing, and man, viewership numbers are through the roof. So thank you guys.
I saw a question from Evan asking if we're going to come back live at 4:30. No, Evan. I think a lot of the cuts have been out there. If there was some surprise one, I could see us doing an emergency podcast. Like
I'll be
if
live on the Bobby Baltimore
yeah,
side.
he'll be on his Bobby Baltimore side. I will be off to soccer games, but I would come in from my phone if there was some sort of massive unforeseen cut. But check out Bobby on his channel.
Thank you. Lady Laura wants to know where the survey link is. It's in the top of the show notes below. So go check that out if you haven't already done so. It'll only take a couple minutes. So thank you, Laura, and thank you to all of you. Awesome show. Sarah and I will be back in under 23 hours from right now for a Wednesday Ravens lunch hour live stream. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about prior to that because actually we definitely will because we had to push content off.
We had to push content off. Plus, we'll know the full 53-man roster. Will we know practice squad by tomorrow? We'll know some practice squad stuff. We'll have reports of that for sure.
Yep.
But maybe not the full 17 where like the team, makes it official. So.
Okay, this is funny from not a fan. This is really funny.
No, I can see far because I got my contacts in. I've never had, is it short-sighted, right? Where you're nearsighted, where you can't see in front of you. Anyway, I was like this last night in bed trying to watch a show to go to bed. So I went over to my husband's, what's the word I'm looking for? The table nightstand. There you go. I went over to his nightstand and got into his drawer. And he has like he's got reading glasses all throughout the house. And I was like, I will be taking these. Put them on. He came in. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I just need to borrow these. I can't see. I'm only 44, Bobby. What? I plan on living till like 95 to 100. Where are we going from here?
I think you guys, have you been eating your carrots or what? I've always known that.
No,
I've always
believed
that carrots are related to eyesight, and I chief carrots.
What's the vitamin in there?
In the carrots?
Yeah. Like, what is it?
I don't know.
All right, I'll look it up. And I'm not a big carrot fan, but I'll get it into my vitamin rotation.
Get some ranch dressing on the side. You can make
wait,
it
that is
sweet.
Good. That is some baby carrots with a little ranch. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
That's all you need.
Watch
Or how about better yet, hummus. You can do some hummus on the side with
hummus.
carrots. Yeah.
Although how many calories are in that?
Yeah.
I'm on a strict.
That feels healthier than ranch.
Yeah, I was gonna say I gotta just do the baby carrots without the ranch if I really want to be careful.
Yeah.
So
I have Horace Torres says that's not true.
What's
Bobby.
not true?
He says that consuming carrots does not help eyesight.
Well, so you're just spreading misinformation on our show. Way to go.
Well, apparently Dr. Torres has got us covered then, because that's news to me. Maybe that's how my mother tricked me in for years and years and years. Anyway, you guys are hysterical. Fun show. Really fun show.
Yeah.
BaltimoreRavensVault at gmail.com is a great way to hit us up via email. If you'd like to connect with us, hit us up, ask questions to be featured on the show, all that good stuff. And now Torres is saying that my mother tricked me. Okay, it's time to go.
So did your one professor who said that nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
And I just ran into his father,
who's
our neighbor.
Something?
I did not, because it's his father. It's his father, and I don't know if he believes in the same. So I just ran into his father. He's a neighbor of ours, and I barely see him at all. He's a local football coach. He's the best of the best. Jim Smith, classic. Coach Smith. And I can't believe I'll see him again over the next couple weeks.
All
And
right.
I'll be like, hey, Jim
Yeah.
Smith, your son,
Yeah.
Jim Smith Jr.,
My
needs
co-host
to
has
call
a
me.
bone to pick with
Needs to
him.
come on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. We'll catch up with you guys on Wednesday. We'll be more connected then.